During my vasectomy consultation, the doctor pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something about your blood work." "What is it?" He looked uncomfortable. "You are sterile. You've been your entire life." "But I have 3 kids." Just then my elder son called me. "Dad, Mom, she's making us." The vinyl chairs in Dr. Morrison's office were the kind that stuck to your legs in summer. James Caldwell had been sitting in one for 20 minutes, filling out forms about family medical history, questions that now felt like they'd been written in a foreign language. His hand trembled slightly as he checked the box marked vasectomy consultation. Though the procedure itself seemed like a formality now. At 42, James had what most would call a complete life. 3 kids, Dylan, 15, Kayla, 13, and Marielle, 8, a comfortable house in the suburbs of Charlotte. 20 years with his wife, Marina. He managed a mid-sized architectural firm downtown, designed buildings that would outlast him. The vasectomy was practical. Marina's difficult pregnancies, the strain 3 kids put on their finances, the simple fact that their family felt complete. "Mr. Caldwell," the nurse's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Doctor, we'll see you now." Dr. Morrison was a slight man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and the perpetually concerned expression of someone who delivered too much bad news. He shook James's hand with both of his own, a gesture that immediately set off alarm bells. "James, thank you for coming in. Please sit down. Is there a problem with the procedure?" James asked, settling into the chair across from the desk. "I know there are risks, but Marina and I have discussed. It's not about the vasectomy." Dr. Morrison pulled a folder from his desk drawer, opened it, then closed it again without looking at the contents. "Your blood work came back. Standard panel we run before any surgical procedure." And the doctor's fingers drummed once against the folder. "James, I need to tell you something, and there's no easy way to say this. According to your results, you're sterile. Aopermia, complete absence of sperm. The markers suggest this is congenital, meaning you've been this way your entire life." The words seemed to arrive in James' ears separately from their meaning. Sterile entire life. He heard them, understood them individually, but couldn't make them form a coherent thought. That's impossible. I have 3 children." Dr. Morrison's expression held steady professional sympathy mixed with something that looked like pity. "I ran the test twice. I even sent it to another lab. James, I'm certain of the results." The office suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. James' mind raced through possibilities. Medical error, contaminated samples, some condition that developed and resolved itself. But Dr. Morrison's face told him these weren't answers he'd find. "How certain?" James heard himself ask. "Absolute." The word hung between them like a guillotine blade. James stood without meaning to, his legs moving on autopilot. I need some air, James." "Wait." But he was already out the door, past the nurse's station, through the waiting room where a young couple sat filling out the same forms he had. The same lies. The parking lot stretched before him. Acres of sun-baked asphalt that wavered in the afternoon heat. He sat in his car for 10 minutes before his phone rang. Dylan's name flashed on the screen. "Dad." His son's voice was tight, stressed in a way that cut through James' spiral. "Dad, you need to come home." "Mom, she's making us." The line went dead. James tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. He tried Marina's number. Same thing. A text to Dylan went undelivered. The message hanging in digital limbo with a small red exclamation point. Something was very wrong. He drove on instinct. His mind split between Dr. Morrison's revelation and Dylan's panicked call. The 15-minute drive home took 8. He barely registered running a red light or cutting off a delivery truck. The Caldwell house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac, a 2-story colonial with blue shutters that Marina had insisted on repainting last spring. James' own design built 12 years ago when Kayla was still a baby. Now it looked different somehow, like a familiar word repeated until it lost all meaning. Dylan's bike lay on its side in the driveway. The back wall still spinning slightly. Kayla's shoes were scattered by the front door, which stood open. James' heart rate kicked up. He took the porch steps 2 at a time. Dylan, Caleb, the living room looked like a tornado had passed through. Couch cushions on the floor, picture frames face down. The coffee table pushed against the wall, but it was the silence that unnerved him most. No TV, no music, none of the ambient chaos that came with 3 kids. Marielle, Marina. A crash came from upstairs. James sprinted up, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Dylan's room. The door was locked. "Dylan, open up, Dad." His son's voice muffled. "She's don't let her." Another crash. This one accompanied by Kayla's scream. James threw his shoulder against the door. The frame splintered but held. Second hit. The lock gave way and the door flew open. The scene before him made no sense. Dylan stood in front of the closet, his arms spread wide, protecting something or someone. His lip was bleeding, his shirt torn. Kayla sat on the bed holding Mariel. Both of them crying. And Marina, his wife, stood in the center of the room holding Dylan's baseball bat, her knuckles white around the grip. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes wild with something James had never seen in 20 years of marriage. Rage maybe or fear. Marina, what the hell? They know, she said, her voice flat and cold. They know everything. Know what? Put down the bat. Don't. She pointed it at him like a weapon. Don't you dare act innocent. I saw your face when you came home. The doctor told you, didn't he? The room tilted. James gripped the door frame. How do you I've known for 16 years? Marina said, since Dylan was born and I saw the blood type on his hospital bracelet. AB positive. Euro negative. I'm O positive. She laughed. A sound like breaking glass. Basic biology, James. Impossible odds. Dylan's eyes went wide. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying your father isn't your father. None of you are his. Marina's voice cracked. And now he knows. And now you know. And everything's ruined. Everything. Kayla made a small wounded sound. Mariel buried his face in his sister's shoulder. James felt the world reorganize itself around this new center of gravity. 20 years. 3 children. Every birthday, every school play, every skin, knee, and bedtime story. Every single moment suddenly suspect. Retroactively poisoned. Who? The question came out as barely a whisper. Marina laughed again. That same terrible sound. Does it matter? You want to know which one? Dylan is Roy's. Kayla is Logan's. Mariel is Sterling's happy now. Roy Hardy, his former best friend from college, the one who disappeared from their lives after Dylan was born, said he'd gotten a job in Seattle. Logan Nichols, Marina's ex-boyfriend from high school, who'd shown up at their wedding looking like he'd swallowed nails. Sterling Schwartz, their neighbor who'd moved away 8 years ago, citing personal reasons. The pieces fell into place with the weight of tombstones. Get out, James said quietly. This is my house, too. Get out. The roar came from somewhere primal, somewhere James didn't know existed inside him. You have 5 minutes to take whatever you can carry and leave, or I call the police and tell them you just assaulted our. He choked on the word. These children, Dylan's bleeding. You locked them in here. Marina's face cycled through emotions. Defiance, fear, calculation. She looked at the kids, then back at James. Whatever she saw in his expression made her decision. You'll regret this, she said, but she was already moving toward the door. You have no idea what you're doing. For minutes, she left, and James heard her footsteps thundering down the stairs, the slam of dresser drawers, the jingle of car keys. He didn't move until he heard her car start, the engine rev, the squeal of tires as she peeled out of the driveway. Only then did he look at the 3 kids huddled together on Dylan's bed. 3 kids who weren't his biologically. 3 kids who just had their world shattered. Dylan with his bleeding lip and protective stance. Kayla with tears streaming down her face. Mariel, too young to fully understand, but old enough to know everything had changed. Dad. Dylan's voice was small. Are you going to leave us, too? The question hit like a physical blow. James crossed the room and pulled all 3 of them into his arms, holding them so tightly he could feel their heartbeats against his chest. Never, he said into Dylan's hair. You hear me? Never. I don't care about blood. I don't care about DNA. You're mine and I'm yours, and that's not changing. They stayed like that for a long time. The 4 of them holding each other while the sun moved across the floor and the house settled around them. James' mind was already working, already planning. Marina had betrayed him in the worst way possible, but she'd made a critical error. She'd shown her hand too soon, and James Caldwell was very good at long-term planning. The days following Marina's departure passed in a strange suspended reality. James took personal leave from the firm, citing a family emergency, which was true enough that no one questioned it. He spent the first 48 hours simply keeping the household running. Meals, homework, bedtimes. The routine helped. Gave them all something to hold on to while the ground shifted beneath their feet. On the 3rd day, James sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and a legal pad, waiting for the kids to leave for school. Dylan had insisted on going back immediately. Some teenage need to maintain normally. Kayla had agreed after an extra day home. Mariel clung a bit longer but followed his siblings' lead. The house felt cavernous in their absence. James opened his laptop and began researching. Not divorce law that would come later. Not custody battles or DNA tests. He already knew the truth, and so did Marina. What he needed was information on the three men who had fathered his children. Roy Hardy was easy to find. The job in Seattle had been real, but Roy hadn't lasted long in the tech sector. According to LinkedIn, he bounced between startups before landing at a venture capital firm in Portland 5 years ago. Married, 2 kids of his own, James stared at Roy's profile photo, still the same easy smile he remembered from college, the one that had charmed professors and talked them out of countless parking tickets. Logan Nichols was harder to track. No social media presence, no professional profiles. James had to dig through old newspapers and public records before finding him. Logan had stayed in Charlotte working construction and bouncing between jobs. Multiple addresses over the years, mostly apartments in cheaper parts of town, a DUI from 2019, an assault charge that was later dropped. Sterling Schwartz had done well for himself. Real estate development. According to his company website, married to Patrice Clay, a lawyer, no kids listed, though Sterling's bio mentioned his love of mentoring young people and coaching youth soccer. The hypocrisy made James' jaw clench. His phone buzz. An unknown number. He considered ignoring it, then answered, "Mr. Caldwell, this is Amber Becker from Thornton Family Law. Your wife retained our services yesterday. We're calling to inform you that Mrs. Caldwell is filing for divorce and full custody of the 3 minor children. You should expect to be served with papers within the week." James sat down his pen very carefully. Full custody? Yes, sir. Mrs. Caldwell has made serious allegations regarding your fitness as a parent. She's also requesting the marital home, full child support, and alimony. I'm calling as a professional courtesy to suggest you obtain legal representation immediately. What allegations? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but I'd recommend you speak with an attorney as soon as possible. A pause. Mr. Caldwell, I'll be frank with you. I've been doing this for 20 years. Whatever's happening in your marriage, those kids need stability. I hope you'll keep their best interests in mind. The call ended before James could respond. He sat staring at his phone, Marina's strategy crystallizing in his mind. She was going on the offensive, painting herself as the victim, using the children as weapons. Full custody meant she could control the narrative, control his access, control everything. It was bold. It was vicious. It was a mistake. James made his first call to Bruce Walker, an attorney who'd helped with the firm's contracts over the years. Bruce listened to a carefully edited version of events. The sterility diagnosis, the revelation, Marina's attack on the children, then whistled low. "James, I'm a corporate guy. You need Nicholas Herta, best family law attorney in Charlotte, maybe in North Carolina. He's expensive, but if what you're telling me is true, you're going to need him." The second call was to Nicholas Herta's office. The receptionist tried to schedule a consultation for the following week. James told her he'd pay double for an emergency appointment today. Money, he'd learned in 20 years of architecture, could make almost anything happen. Office occupied the top floor of a steel and glass building downtown. The kind of aggressive modernity that James usually avoided designing. The attorney himself was younger than expected, maybe 35, with the kind of sharp suit and sharper eyes that suggested he didn't lose often. "Mr. Caldwell, my retainer is $50,000. Is that going to be a problem?" "No." "Good. Now tell me everything, and I mean everything. Things you think are irrelevant, things you're embarrassed about, things you think make you look bad. I can't help you if I'm surprised in court." James told him all of it. Dr. Morrison's revelation, Marina's confession, the names of the biological fathers, Marina's assault on the children. He showed Herta the photos he'd taken of Dylan's split lip, the broken closet door, the damaged room. Herta took notes on a yellow legal pad, his expression neutral. When James finished, the attorney sat back and steepled his fingers. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. Marina's attorney called this morning trying to intimidate you, make you panic, maybe do something stupid. That's standard practice. What's not standard is that she's alleging you're an unfit parent while simultaneously admitting, I assume she admitted this, that you're not the biological father of any of the children. She told all of us, me and the kids. That's incredibly stupid on her part." Herta made another note. North Carolina is a pure no-fault divorce state, but adultery is still a factor in alimony determinations. And if she's requesting full custody while you're the only legal father, did you sign the birth certificates? All 3. Then legally, you're their father. Biology doesn't matter. She committed paternity fraud. And if we can prove she knew from the beginning, that goes to her character. Add in the assault on Dylan and we've got a strong case. Where to lean forward. But here's what you need to understand. James' family court is unpredictable. Judges have broad discretion. If Marina gets the right judge on the right day, she could spin this as a mother desperately protecting her children from a father who just discovered they're not biologically his. That's insane. I would never. I believe you. But we need to prove it. I want you to document everything. Every interaction with the kids, every meal, every homework assignment. I want character witnesses who can testify to your relationship with Dylan, Kayla, and Meryl. I want medical records showing you've been their father in every meaningful way for their entire lives. Done. I also want you to think very carefully about whether you want to pursue any legal action against the biological fathers. James had been thinking about nothing else. What are my options? Honestly, not many. You could potentially sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress, but that's a high bar. You'd need to prove they knowingly participated in the fraud. Did they know about the children? I don't know. Roy disappeared. Logan showed up at our wedding looking angry. Sterling coached Mariel's soccer team for a year before moving away. James paused. He coached his own son's soccer team. That might be enough for Sterling, but it's circumstantial. The bigger question is, what do you want, James? Revenge, money, justice? Because those are three different things, and you need to decide which matters most. James thought about Dylan bleeding, Kayla crying, Mariel too young to understand why his world was ending. He thought about 20 years of lies, of Marina crawling into bed next to him every night, knowing exactly what she'd done. He thought about Roy, Logan, and Sterling living their lives while he'd raised their children. Paid for their children, loved their children. All three, he said quietly. We're to smile for the first time. Then we're going to get along just fine. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Marina's attorney had filed an emergency motion claiming James had threatened her, that she feared for her safety and the safety of the children. It was a transparent, tactical move. Keep James away from the house and kids while she consolidated her position. Was ready. The courtroom was smaller than James expected, more bureaucratic than dramatic. Judge Natalia Wall presided, a black woman in her 50s with reading glasses and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie and excuse ever invented. Marina sat at the plaintiff's table with Amber Becker, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, playing the part of frightened wife perfectly. James noticed Dylan sitting in the back row. His son met his eyes and nodded once deliberately. Support. Miss Becker, your client is requesting an emergency protective order based on allegations that Mr. Caldwell made verbal threats following a domestic dispute. Is that correct? Judge Wall's voice carried the particular weariness of someone who'd seen this exact script too many times. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Caldwell feared for her safety and the safety of her 3 children after Mr. Caldwell became violent when she asked him to leave the marital home. Wera stood smoothly. Your Honor, if I may, Mrs. Caldwell has reversed the chronology of events. My client returned home to find his wife had locked their 3 children in a bedroom and assaulted their 15-year-old son with a baseball bat. We have photographs of Dylan Caldwell's injuries, a statement from Dylan himself, and phone records showing Dylan called his father in distress moments before Mr. Caldwell arrived. Judge Wall's eyebrows rose. Miss Becker, Your Honor, Mrs. Caldwell was attempting to discipline her children after discovering they'd been hiding concerning information about their father's behavior. She hit me with a bat. Dylan's voice rang out from the back row while I was protecting my brother and sister from her. The courtroom went silent. Judge Wolf fixed Dylan with a stern look. Young man, you'll have an opportunity to testify if called. Until then, I'd like to call Dylan Caldwell to testify. Your Honor, Herta said, this is a hearing, not a trial. But given that the protective order directly affects him and his siblings, I believe his testimony is relevant. Judge Wall considered and nodded. Bailiff swear in the witness. Dylan walked to the stand with his shoulders back, chin up. The bruise on his jaw had faded to a greenish yellow, but it was still visible. He swore to tell the truth with a steady voice. Kept it simple. Dylan, tell the court what happened on the day in question. Mom was acting weird all morning. She kept asking me and my sister and brother these strange questions about Dad, about whether we felt safe with him, stuff like that. Then she got a phone call and just lost it. She started screaming that Dad knew that we'd all find out that everything was ruined. She made us go upstairs, then locked us in my room. When I tried to leave, she pushed me back. That's when I called Dad. What happened after you called your father? Mom grabbed my baseball bat from the closet. She was yelling that we didn't understand, that Dad would leave us, that she was protecting us. Mariel started crying, and when Kayla tried to comfort him, Mom swung the bat. I got in the way. Your mother hit you with the bat. She was aiming for the door, I think. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, she hit me. Split my lip. Then Dad came home and made her leave. Has your father ever threatened you or your siblings? Never. Has your father ever been violent with you? He gave me a spanking when I was 8 for stealing from a store. That's it. One last question, Dylan. Do you want to live with your father? Yes. So, do Kayla and Mariel. We already talked about it. Ms. Becker's cross-examination was brief and ineffective. She tried to suggest Dylan was lying to protect his father, but the boy's composure didn't crack. When he stepped down, he walked back to his seat without looking at his mother. Marina took the stand next. Under Becker's questioning, she painted a picture of a man who'd become increasingly distant, who'd undergone a personality change after visiting the doctor who'd ordered her out of her own home with threats of violence. Whereas cross-examination was surgical. Mrs. Caldwell, were you aware that your husband is sterile and has been his entire life? Marina's eyes went wide. That's private medical information. It's relevant to the protective order, Your Honor. Mrs. Caldwell's state of mind on the day in question directly relates to her actions. Judge Wall nodded. Answer the question, Mrs. Caldwell. Yes, I knew. How long have you known? A pause. 16 years. And in those 16 years, how many affairs did you have? Objection. Becker shot to her feet. Relevance. It goes to Mrs. Caldwell's credibility and her claim that she feared for her safety. Your Honor, I'll allow it. Marina's face had gone pale. 3 affairs resulting in 3 children, none of whom are biologically related to your husband. Is that correct? Yes. Did you tell Mr. Caldwell about these affairs? No. Did you tell him he wasn't the biological father of Dylan, Kayla, and Merrill? No. So, for 16 years, you allowed your husband to believe he was raising his own children, to financially support them, to love them, to build his entire life around them while knowing it was based on a lie. Marina's hands twisted in her lap. It's not that simple. Did you or did you not commit paternity fraud against James Caldwell for 16 years? Objection. Withdrawn. Mrs. Caldwell, on the day in question, you locked 3 children, ages 15, 13, and 8, in a bedroom and assaulted the oldest when he tried to protect his siblings. Do you deny this? I was trying to protect them. From their father discovering the truth you'd hidden for 16 years, Marina's composure cracked. You don't understand. When James found out, I knew he'd leave. I knew he'd take them from me. Everything I did was to keep my family together. By hitting a 15-year-old boy with a baseball bat. Silence. Judge Wall removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. I've heard enough. The request for a protective order is denied. Furthermore, I'm granting Mr. Caldwell temporary full custody of the 3 minor children pending a full hearing. Mrs. Caldwell, you'll have supervised visitation every other weekend, supervised by a court-appointed guardian. We're adjourned. The gavel came down like thunder. Marina stood frozen as Herta gathered his papers. James saw the moment she realized what had just happened. Her gambit to keep the children had not only failed but backfired spectacularly. She'd lost them entirely. Outside the courtroom, Dylan hugged James hard enough to hurt. You came through always, James said. Then quieter. Go wait in the car. I'll be there in a minute. He found Marina in the hallway outside. Amber Becker speaking to her in low urgent tones. When Marina saw James approaching, she dismissed her attorney with a gesture. Come to gloat. Her voice was brittle. Come to make you an offer. James kept his voice level controlled. Drop the divorce proceedings. Give me full custody. Sign over your parental rights voluntarily. You're insane. In exchange, I won't pursue fraud charges. I won't sue you for the money I spent raising children you knew weren't mine. I won't tell Dylan, Kayla, and Mariel the names of their biological fathers until they're adults and can make their own decisions about contact. He paused. And I'll give you $50,000 to start over somewhere else. Marina laughed bitterly. That's it. 20 years of marriage and you're buying me out for 50 grand. 20 years of lies, Marina. I'm being generous. What about my house? My life? Those are my children. Biologically, they're not mine. Legally, they are. And after what you did to Dylan, after you locked them in a room like animals, you're lucky I'm offering you anything. James's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Take the deal because if we go to trial, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Your family, your friends, your employer. I'll make sure those 3 men know they have children they never claimed. I'll burn your entire life down and salt the earth behind you. You can't. I'm an architect, Marina. I plan for the long term. I build things meant to last. And right now, I'm building a case that will bury you so deep you'll never see daylight again. He straightened his jacket. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires and I go scorched earth. He walked away without looking back, his hands trembling with adrenaline. The hard part was maintaining control, not letting the rage show. Everything had to be calculated, measured. He'd learned that in architecture, emotion was the enemy of precision. Behind him, he heard Marina start to cry. He didn't turn around. The house settled into a new rhythm. Over the following weeks, James hired Dolores Ramos, a recommended nanny and housekeeper who helped manage the chaos of 3 kids while he worked. The firm had been understanding about his reduced hours, but he couldn't stay away forever. His current project, a mixed-use development downtown, needed his attention. But the evenings belonged to Dylan, Kayla, and Meryl. Homework at the kitchen table, dinner together every night, movies on weekends. They didn't talk about Marina much. Her supervised visitations were awkward, brief affairs at a neutral location where she and the kids sat in uncomfortable silence while a social worker took notes. She hadn't signed the papers yet. The 48 hours had passed, then a week, then 2. Herta assured James this was normal. People needed time to accept that they'd lost. But James knew Marina better than that. She was planning something. The answer came on a Tuesday evening. James was reviewing blueprints in his home office when his phone rang. Unknown number. Portland area code. "Hello," James called. Well, the voice was familiar, but aged, roughened by years, and maybe alcohol. "It's Roy. Roy Hardy." James's hand tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" "Marina called me. Said, you know about Dylan? Said, you're threatening to ruin her life if she doesn't give up her kids." A pause. "Her kids, James, not yours. I signed a birth certificate. I raised him. I'm his father in every way that matters. Except biology. Except the truth." Roy's voice took on an edge. "Look, I didn't know about Dylan for years. Marina and I had a thing right after you two got married. I'm not proud of it. When she told me she was pregnant, I assumed it was yours. And she called me 8 years ago, told me the truth, asked for money. You gave it to her. I gave her $50,000 to stay out of my life. And Dylan's I have a family, James. A wife who doesn't know I cheated with my best friend's wife. Kids who don't know they have a half-brother. I paid for my silence and I paid for hers." James felt the puzzle pieces rearranging. "She blackmailed you. Call it what you want, but now you're threatening to blow up my life anyway and I can't let that happen. So, here's my offer. You back off, Marina. You don't pursue this vendetta. You don't tell Dylan who his biological father is, and I'll make sure you're compensated for your trouble." "How much trouble am I worth?" $200,000. Clean wire transfer. Untraceable. James laughed without humor. "You think this is about money? Everything's about money, James. You're an architect. You know that better than anyone. Buildings, marriages, families. It's all just capital and contracts. No," the word came out flat and final. "You don't get to buy your way out of this. You slept with my wife. You fathered my son. And you paid her to keep quiet while I raised him. That makes you complicit. I'm offering you a fortune. I'm offering you a choice. You can come clean to your family voluntarily. Establish a relationship with Dylan if he wants one when he's older and face the consequences of your actions like an adult. Or I can make sure everyone you know discovers exactly what kind of person you are. Your wife, your employers, your kids. I'll put ads in the Portland papers if I have to. You're bluffing. Try me. I've already lost everything that mattered. I'm raising 3 kids who aren't biologically mine, married to a woman who lied to me for 20 years, and dealing with 2 other men who helped her do it. What exactly do you think you can threaten me with?" The silence stretched long enough that James thought Roy had hung up. "Then you've changed." "No, I've just stopped pretending. I don't know how to fight." James ended the call. The second call came 2 hours later. Logan Nichols, his voice rough with the particular rasp of a longtime smoker. "Caldwell. Yeah. Marina said you'd be causing trouble. Said you're trying to take her kids away. They're my kids legally. Not according to blood. Look, I'll be straight with you. I knew about Kayla. Marina told me when the girl was 2. I was in a bad place back then. Drinking, fighting, couldn't hold down a job. Marina said Kayla was better off with you raising her. And she was right. I wasn't father material. And now I'm sober 2 years. Got a steady job. Got my life together. And I'm thinking maybe I should meet my daughter. See if there's room in her life for her real father." The threat was obvious. James kept his voice level. "Kayla is 13 years old. She just found out her mother cheated on her father, the man she's called dad her entire life, and that I'm not biologically related to her. She's devastated. And you think this is a good time to introduce more chaos into her life. I think I have rights. You have nothing. You never claimed paternity. You never paid child support. You never spent a single sleepless night when she was sick or helped with homework or taught her to ride a bike. You're a sperm donor with delusions of importance. Marina said. Marina is a liar and a fraud who's about to lose everything. If you want to hitch your wagon to her, go ahead. But understand this. I will fight you in court with every resource I have. I will prove you're an unfit parent. I will make sure Kayla knows exactly why you stayed away for 13 years. Because you were a drunk and a failure who couldn't be bothered to try. You son of a. And if by some miracle you do get visitation rights, I'll make sure Kayla knows that you only showed up now to help Marina hurt me. Not because you love her, not because you want a relationship, because you're being manipulated by a woman who's using you as a weapon. James paused. How do you think that'll go? How do you think a 13-year-old girl will react to meeting the father who abandoned her, who only appeared when it was convenient? The line went dead. James sat in his office, staring at the blueprints without seeing them. Marina was rallying her allies, trying to build leverage. Roy with money, Logan with legal rights, which meant the third call would come from Sterling Schwartz, and it would be the most dangerous. He didn't have to wait long. His phone rang at 10 p.m. after the kids had gone to bed. Mr. Caldwell, this is Sterling Schwartz. I believe we need to talk about my son. Mariel is my son. Biologically, he's mine. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately. About the year I coached his soccer team, watching him grow, seeing myself in his mannerisms, about moving away because Marina said it was too complicated, too risky. Sterling's voice was smooth, confident, the voice of someone used to closing deals. I made a mistake leaving. I'd like to correct it. By helping Marina by establishing my parental rights, Marina suggested we could work together. She gets primary custody. I get visitation. You get to walk away with your dignity intact. No messy trial, no public exposure of the affairs. No one needs to know the details. James stood and walked to the window. Outside, the suburban street was quiet, peaceful, a perfect facade. What did she offer you? Excuse me, Marina. To get you to call me to threaten to claim Mariel. What did she promise you? A pause? That's between me and her. She's using you, Sterling. The same way she used you 8 years ago when she needed a genetic donor and her husband wasn't available. The same way she's using Roy and Logan. You're all just tools to her. That's not. Did she mention that she assaulted Dylan with a baseball bat? That she locked all 3 kids in a room because she was afraid they'd tell me the truth? That she's already lost temporary custody because Judge Wall saw through her performance? She said you tried to poison me against her. I don't need to. You can read the court transcripts yourself. They're public record, James, let that sink in. But here's what I'm curious about. Your wife, Patrice, does she know about Mariel? The silence was answer enough. I'll take that as a no. So, Marina is asking you to claim parental rights to a child your wife doesn't know exists. To fight a custody battle that will become public record, and to do it all to help a woman who's demonstrably unstable and violent. Does that about sum it up? Mr. Caldwell, you're a real estate developer. Sterling, you understand contracts and leverage. So, here's mine. Stay out of this. Let me continue raising the boy I've been raising for 8 years, and I'll make sure Patrice never finds out about your affair. Walk away quietly and everyone keeps their secrets. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone knows. Your wife, your clients, your business partners. I'll let the soccer league know that you coached your biological son without telling anyone. I'll create such a comprehensive storm that your reputation will never recover. James' voice went cold. And then I'll still win custody of Merrill because I'm his legal father and you're a home wrecker who's been hiding a child from his wife for 8 years. You'll lose everything and gain nothing. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. The same choice I offered Roy and Logan. Walk away or burn your call. James hung up and turned off his phone. His hands were shaking. Adrenaline flooding his system. 3 calls, 3 threats. 3 men who'd helped destroy his marriage now trying to take his children. He wouldn't let them. In the morning, he'd call Hura and brief him on the conversations. They'd adjust strategy, prepare for Marina's next move. But for now, James walked upstairs and checked on the kids. Dylan asleep with headphones still in his ears. Kayla curled around her stuffed elephant, the one James had won for her at a carnival when she was 5. Mariel sprawled across his bed like a starfish. Blankets kicked to the floor. His children, not by blood, but by every single day for 15, 13, and 8 years, respectively. No one was taking that away from him. No one. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In the intervening time, Marina had signed a lease on an apartment across town, started a new job as a medical receptionist, and begun attending court-ordered therapy. Her supervised visitations with the kids remained awkward and brief. Mariel cried. Kayla stayed silent. Dylan answered questions in monosyllables. Herta had filed a countersuit demanding sole custody, division of assets, and reimbursement for child-rearing expenses. It's aggressive, he told James. But we're not trying to win the money. We're trying to show that you're serious, that you won't be intimidated, and that her lies have real financial consequences. Marina's attorney, Amber Becker, had responded with a motion to compel DNA testing, establishing legal paternity for Roy, Logan, and Sterling. Herta had blocked it on grounds that the children's welfare took precedence over biological curiosity and that forcing them to undergo testing would cause psychological harm. Judge Wall had agreed with one caveat. She wanted to speak to each child privately before making a final custody determination, which was how James found himself sitting in a courthouse hallway on a Friday afternoon, watching Dylan disappear into the judge's chambers. Sat beside him, reviewing notes. Kayla and Mariel waited with Dolores at the far end of the hall, playing a card game to pass the time. Stop worrying, Herta said without looking up. Dylan's a smart kid. He'll tell the truth. That's what worries me. What if the truth isn't enough? 20 minutes later, Dylan emerged. He gave James a small nod. Okay, it said. I did my part. Kayla went next, her thin frame seeming even smaller as she followed the bailiff into chambers. James wanted to follow her, to protect her, to make sure she didn't feel alone. But all he could do was wait. When Kayla emerged 30 minutes later, her eyes were red but dry. She walked straight to James and hugged him hard. I told her everything, she whispered. About Mom. About how you've always been my dad. About how I don't want to live with her. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. You've been fighting for us. It's time we fought for you. Mariel's interview was shorter. 15 minutes. When he came out, he was crying. James scooped him up despite the boy's protest that he was too old to be carried. What happened? The judge asked if I loved Mom. Mariel said into James' shoulder. I said, yes, but I'm scared of her. I told her about the bat, about how Mom's eyes looked wrong that day. James held his youngest son while the boy cried, aware that this was one of those moments that would define both their lives. Mariel would remember being scared, but he'd also remember being held. Judge Wall called them all back into chambers an hour later. This time, it wasn't the courtroom, but her actual office lined with law books and framed degrees. Marina sat in one chair, James in another. Becker and Herta flanked their respective clients. I've spoken with all three children, Judge Wall began, removing her glasses. I've reviewed the case files, the police reports, the medical records, the financial statements. I've considered the arguments from both sides, and I've made my determination. Marina's hands clenched in her lap. Mrs. Caldwell, I want to be very clear about something. I understand that family situations are complex. I understand that marriages fail and people make mistakes, but what you did, assaulting a 15-year-old boy, locking 3 children in a room, creating an atmosphere of fear and instability, that is not a mistake. That is abuse. Your Honor, my client was under extreme emotional duress. Miss Becker, I'm not interested in excuses. I'm interested in the welfare of 3 children who deserve better than this. Judge Wall turned back to Marina. You committed paternity fraud. You allowed Mr. Caldwell to raise and financially support 3 children while knowing they weren't biologically his. You maintained this deception for over 15 years. And when the truth came out, your first instinct was violence. Marina's face had gone pale. I love my children. I don't doubt that. But love isn't enough when it comes with a baseball bat. Judge Wall opened a folder. I'm granting Mr. Caldwell sole legal and physical custody of Dylan, Kayla, and Mel Caldwell. You'll have supervised visitation twice monthly, increasing to unsupervised visitation after 6 months of successful compliance with therapy and anger management. You will pay child support in an amount to be determined by the state guidelines. And you will have no say in major decisions regarding the children's health, education, or welfare. No. Marina stood, her chair scraping back. You can't. They're my children. I carried them. I gave birth to them. And you hit one of them with a baseball bat when he tried to protect his siblings. Judge Wall's voice could have cut glass. Sit down, Mrs. Caldwell. Marina sat, tears streaming down her face. As for the property division, I'm awarding the marital home to Mr. Caldwell given that he'll be the primary custodial parent and the children's stability should be prioritized. The retirement accounts will be split according to state law. Mrs. Caldwell will not receive alimony given the adultery and fraud. Judge Wall closed the folder. This is my final determination. If you wish to appeal, you're welcome to do so, but I'll warn you that the appellate court will have access to my notes from the children's interviews. All three of them were very clear about their wishes. The gavel came down. Marina's sobs filled the small office. Becker put a hand on her shoulder, but Marina shook it off. She looked at James with such raw hatred that it actually made him step back. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've taken everything from me. You took everything from yourself, James said quietly. I just made sure you couldn't take the kids, too. Outside the courthouse, James called the kids. Dylan answered on the first ring. Dad, it's done. You're staying with me. All three of you. The whoop on the other end was loud enough that James had to pull the phone away from his ear. He could hear Kayla and Marielle celebrating in the background. Dolores trying to quiet them down. We're going out to dinner, James decided. Wherever you want, and tomorrow we're going to talk about what comes next, but tonight we celebrate, Dad. Dylan's voice had gone serious. Thank you for fighting for us, for not giving up. I'd fight the whole world for you three. We know. That's why we love you. James hung up before his son could hear him cry. But victory in court didn't mean the war was over. 3 days after the hearing, James received a certified letter from an attorney in Portland. Roy Hardy was filing for parental rights and visitation with Dylan. 2 days after that, Logan Nichols filed similar paperwork for Kayla. Sterling Schwartz held out for a week before his attorney contacted Herta about establishing paternity for Merrill. Marina had played her final card. She coordinated this, Herta said, spreading the legal filings across his desk. Probably promised them all reduced child support if they helped her or threatened to name them publicly if they didn't. Either way, we're now fighting a three-front war. Can they win? Biologically, they're the fathers. Legally, they have standing to request paternity tests and seek visitation. As for custody, where to gaze? Probably not. You're the presumed father. You've raised these kids, and the courts don't like disrupting established relationships, but they can make your life hell with endless visitation hearings, modification requests, and legal fees. James stared at the paperwork. 3 men who'd never changed a diaper, never attended a parent-teacher conference, never sat up all night with a sick child, now demanding rights to the children they'd helped create and then abandoned. What if we flip the script? Get a looked up. What do you mean? They're claiming parental rights. Fine, let them. But parental rights come with parental responsibilities. They want to be fathers. They can start paying child support retroactively. All 3 of them. James. That's where it paused. A slow smile spreading. That's actually brilliant. If they claim paternity, they're admitting they're financially responsible. We could potentially go back to the birth of each child. Dylan is 15. Kayla is 13. Marielle is 8. Add up 15 years of child support, 13 years, and 8 years. North Carolina guidelines are what? 15% of income for one child. James did the mental math. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe close to $1 million between the 3 of them. They'll never agree. Then they withdraw their petitions. Either they put their money where their mouths are or they walk away. Marina can't use them as weapons if they refuse to play. Quira started making notes. We need to prove they knew about the children, that they willfully avoided parental responsibility. Roy admitted on a phone call that Marina contacted him 8 years ago and he paid her $50,000 to stay quiet. That's proof he knew about Dylan and chose not to claim him. James pulled out his phone, checking his recordings. I saved the voicemail and I can get phone records showing the call came from his number. Logan told me Marina informed him about Kayla when she was 2 years old. Said he wasn't father material. That's admission of knowledge and willful abandonment. And Sterling, he coached Marielle's soccer team. There's no way he didn't know, especially if he saw himself in the boys' mannerisms like he claimed. James felt the pieces clicking together. We subpoena the soccer league records, get testimony from other parents about Sterling's involvement with Marielle. We build a pattern of knowledge and avoidance. Fully engaged now. His pin flying across the legal pad. This could work. It's aggressive as hell, but it could work. We file counterclaims against all 3 for retroactive child support. We attach liens to their property if necessary. We make this so expensive and painful that they run for the hills. And if they don't run, then they pay. Either way, you win. James leaned back, the weight of the past week settling on his shoulders. I want this done, Nick. I want them gone. I want my kids to have stability and peace and a life that isn't defined by their mother's lies and their biological father's cowardice. Then we go scorched earth. No mercy, no quarter, no compromise. Where met his eyes. You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The countersuit was filed the next morning. By noon, James' phone was ringing. Roy Hardy, his voice tight with panic. Are you insane? You're suing me for $600,000. 15 years of child support adjusted for your income bracket plus interest. That's what you owe for Dylan. You want parental rights? Start paying like a parent. I can't. My wife will. This will destroy my marriage. Then you should have thought about that before sleeping with mine. Withdraw your petition, Roy. Walk away or pay. I don't have that kind of money. You're a venture capitalist. You made $3 million last year according to your LinkedIn. You can afford it. The question is whether you want to. James kept his voice level emotionless. You have 72 hours to withdraw your petition. After that, we go to court and I'll make sure every detail of your affair with Marina, your payment to keep her quiet, and your abandonment of Dylan becomes public record. Your wife will know, your kids will know, everyone you work with will know. This is blackmail. This is consequences. Welcome to them. Logan Nichols called 2 hours later drunk and belligerent. You think you can scare me with money? I don't have anything for you to take. Then you'll declare bankruptcy and spend the next decade rebuilding your credit while the state garnishes your wages. Or you can walk away from Kayla and let her have a normal life. She's my daughter. She's the daughter you didn't want when she was born. The daughter you ignored for 11 years. The daughter you only remembered when Marina needed you to hurt me. James paused. How do you think Kayla will feel when she learns that? When she reads the deposition where you admit you knew about her and chose not to be involved because you were too busy drinking? The line went quiet except for Logan's ragged breathing. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing for the first time in 13 years. Take it. Withdraw the petition. Let Kayla remember you as the father who loved her enough to let her go, not the deadbeat who tried to use her as leverage. Logan hung up without answering. Sterling Schwartz didn't call. Instead, his attorney, a sharp woman named Ursula Cummings, contacted Herta directly. My client is prepared to withdraw his petition regarding Mel Caldwell in exchange for Mr. Caldwell withdrawing his demand for retroactive child support and signing a non-disclosure agreement regarding the circumstances of Mel's parentage. Where to put her on speaker? Miss Cummings, your client wants to preserve his marriage by hiding the son he fathered through an extramarital affair. I understand the motivation, but my client isn't interested in protecting Mr. Schwartz's secrets. Then we'll proceed to trial, establish paternity, and seek joint custody. Mr. Schwartz is prepared to be a father to Meryl. Is Mrs. Schwartz prepared to be a stepmother to her husband's love child? James interjected. Because we'll be deposing her as part of discovery. She'll learn everything. A pause. You're bluffing. Try me. I've already lost my marriage. Sterling still has his to lose. Who do you think blinks first? Another pause longer this time. What do you want? Sterling withdraws his petition. He signs an affidavit admitting he knew about Marielle and chose not to claim him. He pays a one-time settlement of $100,000. Call it conscience money. And he never contacts Marielle or my family again. That's negotiable. James said we can go to $50,000 if he signs today. Tomorrow it goes back to $100,000. Next week we pursue the full amount in court plus punitive damages. I'll need to consult with my client. You have until 5 p.m. Sterling signed at 4:47 p.m. The wire transfer hit James's account at 4:52 p.m. His attorney sent the withdrawal notice at 4:55 p.m. One down. Logan withdrew his petition at 2 a.m. A brief email from a clearly intoxicated man rambling about how the system was rigged and James was ruining lives. Herta responded with a formal acknowledgement and a reminder that if Logan attempted to contact Kayla before she turned 18, they pursue the full child support claim, which left Roy. The 72-hour deadline came and went with no word. Hutera filed the child support claim, attached liens to Roy's property, and sent subpoenas to his employer and his wife's divorce attorney because Herta's private investigator had discovered that Roy's marriage was already on rocky ground. Roy folded 3 days later with a phone call to James directly, bypassing the attorneys. You win, Roy said, his voice hollow. I'm withdrawing everything, but I want you to know what you've done. My wife is leaving me. My kids won't talk to me. I'm losing my job because the scandal is bad for the firm's reputation. You've destroyed my entire life. No, Roy. You destroyed your life when you slept with your best friend's wife. I just made sure you couldn't destroy mine, too. James felt no satisfaction, only a cold, empty finality. You could have been a father to Dylan. You could have claimed him when he was born, raised him, loved him. Instead, you paid Marina to hide him, and pretended he didn't exist. That's not on me. That's on you. I hope you can live with yourself. I can. Can you? Roy hung up without answering. 6 months later, the Caldwell house had settled into something resembling normal. Dylan had started driver's education and was talking about colleges. Kayla had joined the drama club and discovered a talent for stagecraft. Mariel had grown 3 and lost 2 front teeth. Marina's supervised visitations had graduated to unsupervised, 2 weekends a month. The kids came back from those visits quiet and withdrawn, but they went without complaint. James had learned not to ask too many questions. Whatever healing needed to happen between them and their mother would happen on their own timeline. The $50,000 from Sterling sat in an investment account earmarked for the kids' college funds. James had added to it from the life insurance policy he'd cashed in and the savings he'd accumulated. It wouldn't cover everything, but it was a start. On a Saturday morning in late spring, James was working in the garage when Dylan appeared in the doorway, his phone in his hand. "Dad, can we talk?" James set down his tools. "Always. What's up?" "I've been thinking about my biological father." "Roy." Dylan's voice was carefully neutral. "I know you said I could decide when I'm older whether I want to know him, but I'm curious. Not because I want him to be my dad or anything. You're my dad, but because I want to understand where I come from." James' chest tightened, but he kept his expression calm. "Okay. What do you want to know?" "Everything. Who he is, what he's like, why he stayed away." And Dylan looked down at his phone. "I want to know if I can contact him. Just to talk, to ask him questions." This was the moment James had been dreading and preparing for. The moment when his kids started seeking their own truths, their own connections. He wanted to say no to protect Dylan from the disappointment and pain that Roy would inevitably cause. But that wasn't his right. Roy Hardy lives in Portland. He's going through a divorce because his wife found out about you. He lost his job for the same reason. Last I heard, he was working as a consultant and living with his brother. James pulled out his phone, found Roy's contact information, and handed it to Dylan. "This is his email and phone number. If you want to reach out, I won't stop you. But I want you to understand something first." "What?" "Roy made choices. He chose to have an affair with your mother. He chose to hide when she got pregnant. He chose to pay her off instead of claiming you. And when he finally did try to be part of your life, it was because your mother manipulated him into it. Not because he woke up one day and decided to be a father." James met his son's eyes. "I'm not saying this to turn you against him. I'm saying it so you go in with your eyes open. Roy isn't the person you might hope he is." Dylan nodded slowly. "But you're okay with me talking to him?" "I'm okay with you making your own decisions. You're 15, old enough to handle complicated truths." Just James' voice caught. "Just remember that biology doesn't make a father. Time does. Presence does. Love does. And no matter what Roy tells you, no matter what relationship you might develop with him, you're my son. That doesn't change." Dylan crossed the garage and hugged James hard. "I know, Dad. I've always known." They stood like that for a long moment, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects. While outside, the spring sun warmed the driveway where James had taught Dylan to ride a bike 7 years ago. "I might not even contact him," Dylan said, stepping back. "I just wanted to know I could, that it was my choice. It always was. All of this, the fighting, the lawsuits, the custody battle, it was all about making sure you 3 got to choose your own futures. Not Marina, not Roy or Logan or Sterling. You." Dylan smiled. The same lopsided grin that James had seen in a delivery room 15 years ago, and instantly loved. Biology be damned. This was his son. "Want to help me with this deck?" James gestured to the lumber stacked against the wall. "I'm building a bigger outdoor space for summer. Figured we could use somewhere to hang out." "Sure, but I'm terrible at carpentry." "Then I'll teach you." That's what fathers do. They worked together through the afternoon, measuring and cutting and occasionally swearing when a nail went crooked. At some point, Kayla wandered out and started asking questions about theater set design, which led to a discussion of load-bearing walls and structural integrity. Mariel appeared with a soccer ball and convinced them all to take a break for a scrimmage in the backyard. James watched his 3 kids playing together, their laughter echoing off the house he designed and built for them, and felt something shift in his chest. Not forgiveness. He'd never forgive Marina or Roy or the others for what they'd done. But acceptance, maybe. Understanding that the family he'd thought he had was gone, but the family he'd fought for was right here. Imperfect, complicated, hard-won. His. That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, James sat in his office reviewing the architectural plans for the downtown development. His phone buzzed with an email from Marina's attorney. She wanted to discuss modifying the visitation schedule, increasing her time with the kids now that she'd successfully completed her therapy program. James forwarded it to Huarto with a note. "What do you think?" The response came back within minutes. "Up to the kids. They're old enough to have opinions. Ask them which was fair." James made a note to bring it up at breakfast tomorrow. If Dylan, Kayla, and Mariel wanted more time with their mother, he wouldn't stand in the way. The fighting was over. The winning was done. Now came the harder part. Living with the victory, building something new from the wreckage. Teaching his kids that strength wasn't about not falling down, but about getting back up. James closed his laptop and climbed the stairs, checking on each kid one last time before bed. Dylan asleep with a book on his chest. Kayla curled around her elephant. Mariel sprawled like a starfish. His children, his family, his life. And for the first time in 6 months, James Caldwell slept without nightmares.